I am a 19-year-old economics student. And aside from that, I am almost entirely normal. Aside from the fact that 90% of my waking thought is car related. But I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. And specifically, I want to explain why I think a good BMW can change your life. And here is my one. It's a 1996 BMW 730i. And we will get back onto this car. But first I want to talk about this. My first BMW, the 1995 E36. And where better to start than with a brief history lesson. I think I should do a quick preface, although based on those cars it could be a little obvious. To me, when I'm saying a good BMW, that's one from the 90s. But that's not saying that there aren't fantastic cars both before and after. Personally, I love a lot of the earlier BMW work, and a personal dream car of mine has always been an E24 or a 635 CSI or a 3.0 CSL, but I'm going to be speaking about the 90s. And also I don't want to say that there are some fantastic cars after. While they're not really my thing, I have some friends who absolutely adore their more modern BMWs. And what I say is nothing against them. There are some great cars all around, but to me, the ones that are special are the 90s, just because they're my favourite. Now in 1966, BMW introduced the 2002, a compact saloon that set the stage for the underpinnings of what would become the 3 Series as a sporty yet refined saloon. The 2002 was lightweight and had a very engaging driving experience, thanks to its rear-wheel drive and simple yet finely tuned suspension, while not losing that refinement the brand was well known for at the time. And it was loved. The 02 series conveyed a sense of driving pleasure which embodied the BMW slogan at the time, sheer driving pleasure. But there was something missing before the car could be worthy of the slogan, which we know it as, of the ultimate driving machine. And that would come with the introduction of the first 3 Series. In July of 1975, the first 3 Series, the E21, was presented as the successor to that 02 series. This is where the formula would be introduced that to me makes BMW so special. The E21 maintained the rear-wheel drive, but it implemented a driver-focused cockpit and a 50-50 perfect weight distribution. But it did this while maintaining a usable and refined everyday car, with a more upmarket feel than many others in its class at the time. And it was a car deserving of BMW's new tagline. Now, if you've driven a good 3 Series, you've experienced this formula and how it makes these cars feel special. But the next car in the 3 Series lineage would be what brought the ultimate driving machine to the masses. Now, I don't need to tell you what a BMW E30 is. If you've been to a car show, if you've been to a track day, if you've been to an amateur rally or a drift event, or nearly any other automotive event, you've seen an E30 being all things to all people. Unsurprisingly, they sold 2.3 million of them, so it makes sense we've seen them around. Introduced in 1982, the second generation 3 Series was built in a uniquely diverse range of body styles for the time. It was more than just a 2-door coupe. You could get the E30 in many guises, from a 4-door saloon to a convertible to a 4-door estate to a Bauer convertible, and then later, the E30 M3. Now, it retained the 50-50 weight distribution, the rear-wheel drive, and the driver-focused cockpit. It was engineered to be capable of anything, from the commute to the office, to long drives on the motorway, or to the tight turns in city streets. It carved a name for itself as the car to have for any young professional at the time. But a few engineers at BMW Motorsport saw a different vision for the E30. And so they went racing. And in the process, they created the first true M car and carved a formidable legacy in the world of touring cars. But before they could do this, going into the 80s, BMW was stuck in the past, and it was subsequently floundering in motorsports. And BMW's CEO, Eberhard von Kuhheim, especially could not stand being dominated in DTM, especially by Mercedes and their recently introduced 190e. BMW's motorsport division, having been created in '72, said the E30 would need a complete performance makeover. And even under the strict 5,000 road car requirement to be made, he gave the go-ahead, not just to soup up a road-going 3 Series, but to build a race car for the road. Much to the dismay of the company's accountants, they completely ignored. And the results were historic. It dominated, winning not just DTM, but World Touring Car Championship, the European Touring Car Championship, the British Touring Car Championship, and the Italian Touring Car Championship. And at the height of its success, there was a BMW M3 winning a race every single day. The ultimate driving machine had come to truly earn that moniker. But while not as formidable in numbers, there's one car in the 3 Series lineage that sticks out to me more, both on the track and on the road. The BMW E36, introduced in 1990, had some big shoes to fill. To follow the legendary E30, it had to refine what made BMW special while keeping the soul of the ultimate driving machine alive. And if you've been any area on the internet dominated by cars in the past few years, it's clear that many people think it did. And with a more aerodynamic design, a stiffer chassis, and improved suspension, the E36 brought BMW into a modern era. While it was more comfortable, more refined, and therefore heavier, at heart it was truly worthy of the slogan. And the E36 wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It was a perfect blend of performance, practicality, and timeless style, even if most often seen in period driving up and down motorways with a sales rep behind the wheel. But today it remains a favourite among tuners, racers, and collectors alike, And even though the E36 didn't dominate touring car the way the E30 M3 had, it's 90s BTCC that sticks out to me significantly more. Extremely tight regulation meant that racing was exciting with closely matched cars, and those cars looked just like the ones you could go into any showroom and buy. While the E30 M3 shared only 3 body panels with its more standard road car offerings, making it distant to the cars you'd more often than not go and pick up in a showroom, the E36 in BTCC looked like the one you could walk into a showroom and buy. And it was seeing videos of Johan Winkelhock in his 93 and 95 winning white livery E36s that would later inspire me to buy mine. This E36, also a white 4-door saloon. Now I bought this car shortly after turning 18. I'd been searching for a while for a new car, and while searching through Car and Classic, I spotted that one. It may not have had the engine that I wanted, but it was a manual, and it looked like those cars I had seen in footage, that BTCC footage. So a few days later, I went and bought it. Now that car is special to me. It took me to my last sixth form exam. It took me and my stuff to university, to here. It took me on dates. It took me and my friends to the pub. It took me on countless journeys, and it took me and my friends on a dangerously impulsive European road trip that started with just planning to go to an IKEA nearby and ended with us at night on a beach in the Netherlands. I did 20,000 miles in that car, and it took me to car shows where I met some of the best people I've ever met, and it introduced me to a lovely bloke from Essex called Nathan, who would later sell me that V8 BMW land boat I drive today. Now, none of these things are exclusive to an old BMW, but there was something indescribably better about doing all of these things in that car. Maybe it was the fact that it makes you nostalgic for a time at least I wasn't even alive for, or that it taught me to take care of your car and it will take care of you. Or it could simply be that it was a usable and engaging daily while still having an interesting feel about it. It definitely started conversations though, and that led to friendships that I have to this day, and I'm still thankful for that. But while this 19's series did change my life, it's a 7 series that I think will change your life for the better every time you get into it. Now I'll keep the history lesson a bit shorter this time, but if it's something you do want to dive into, I can't recommend this book by Graham Robson enough. But instead, I'll focus more heavily on my favourite generation of 7 series, the 3rd generation, the E38. The 7 Series is the flagship of the BMW range. Introduced in 1977 under the project designation of the E23, these cars immediately proved that total comfort and luxury could be combined with the success BMW had recently had with the 3 Series for engaging and respectable driving dynamics. This cemented the 7 Series as a worthy contender in the luxury personal limousine market. When the 3rd generation 7 Series was introduced in 1994, it was a Hail Mary attempt to challenge the S-Class's prior total dominance over the sector. Through a more sporty form of luxury, and at the time, although there was a common line in contemporary media, it was a facelifted E32, this simply wasn't the case. Aside from a smattering of engine options here and there, shared with the previous generation car, and the chassis bearing links to the recently released 8 Series, it was instead a completely new interpretation of BMW's very successful formula. It was 50-50 weight distribution, it was rear-wheel drive, there was absolute comfort, taking as much of the reins as the driving characteristics. And it captured a wider part of the market than many people expected, while narrowly missing out to beating W140 S-Class in sales. It had finally taken Mercedes' smugness and total dominance in that sector, and given Stuttgart a true rival. But the E38 is a great car, not for its performance or driving characteristics, as nice as those may be, or even its place in automotive history for finally knocking the all-conquering S-Class from its spot of total dominance in the luxury sector. It's simply a nice place to be. This is something I don't feel modern cars truly replicate in the same way. Everything in an E38 feels solid. The leather feels like leather. The wood feels like wood. And traffic is just an excuse to sit in your moving living room a little bit longer. When you're young, you're likely often told this is the most stress-free period of your life. And while that may be true, as a teenager you aren't immune to the stresses of life. Money, exams, relationships will give you stress that you're not yet adequately prepared to deal with in life. And the outlook of your future, in the UK at least, is far from optimistic from what everyone around you tells you. But with an E38, outside is a place you can sit with an engaging driving feel and a comforting interior that will take you anywhere you want to go, even if that is often a petrol station. It's a car that when behind the wheel, the whole world feels conquerable, and anywhere you want to visit is simply limited to how much you're able to convince your friends to split a fuel bill and a ferry ticket. And this BMW took me and my mum to Bruges shortly after Christmas, an adventure and a memory that means a lot to me. And it was only possible because this car could comfortably drive between 3 countries and back in one day. And it did that by inspiring enough confidence in a driver that hadn't yet reached 20. My premise is a very simple one. Life is short, and you will only be young once. If you're young, buy a good BMW. It can change your life if you let it. And at a bare minimum, it will surely take you to some interesting places you hadn't thought of before.